Good morning and welcome to Ed's World, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I'm Jay Edgar, and I am fortunate today to welcome from the depths of secrecy, CWal to Ed's World. CWal, welcome.
Howdy. How you guys doing out there today?
As we can see, there's no face here. He is so shrouded in secrecy. He is wearing all of that armor in all of that heat. So we
This is
will.
just fatigues, man. If you want me to get my armor, give me 5 minutes and I'll get my kit out of my car.
No, we'll hold off on that. Before we get started today, I've got a couple announcements I want to go over. A lot of people who have been on this show know the fact that I have been looking for a permanent co-host from here on out, and I've kind of changed that a little bit now because the demand seems to be having a new guest on every week. We get some fresh ideas, we get to talk about some things, and we get a lot of different perspectives. So for the foreseeable future, Ed's World will remain a guest-driven show. So if you want to get on, shoot me a message over on Twitter. If you know somebody that you think should get on, shoot me a message over on Twitter as well. We will work on making that happen. We've got a big, deep packed show today. We've got all kinds of news over on the abortion side of everything, including, since we talked to Robert last week, Alabama has officially passed a law that is much more stringent than Georgia's law. We will talk a little bit about the fact that some of this may be sent or heading up to the Supreme Court to try and overturn Roe. And of course, Brian Sims has now decided to position a police officer outside of his office to prevent dissenters. We'll talk about that. As we always do, 2020 is gearing up, and we will talk about the race that is going on into 2020, with Warren refusing to go on Fox, de Blasio jumping in, and Cortez slapping at Biden for being too moderate, and we'll get CWal's takes on our regular questions of 2020. Rashida Tlaib got in hot water for trying to lessen the impact of the Holocaust and trying to make it all about her and her people again. We'll talk a little bit about that. The never-ending story of the Mueller saga continues, and William Barr has appointed a special counsel, or a special prosecutor rather, to investigate the investigators of the Mueller probe. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the fact that congressional Democrats plan to read the entire report line by line out loud on the taxpayer's dime. And we don't do much about foreign policy on this show, but there have been some major developments on the foreign side in the last week. So we'll talk about what happened there, including the tariff war, Iraq, and President Trump's shift on the immigration policy. It is going to be all of this and more over on Ed's World. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube. If you like what you see and you're not subscribed yet, please reach down and hit that subscribe button. That always helps us move up the algorithms. And hit that like button to let YouTube know that other people should be watching this video as well. You can also subscribe and like over on BitChute, and we can take the conversation over there. If you are listening back to this on an audio platform, thank you again. Make sure you subscribe on that audio platform. And if you are on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the algorithms and get us out to a bigger audience. Ed's World is proudly partnered with the Freedom Scoop Media Group, and make sure you check us out over there. You can link up with a lot of other great creators over there. The Generational Gap is on Freedom Scoop. Stephen Ignoramus is on Freedom Scoop, and Robert from the Generational Gap is going to be contributing some written articles over there as well. So go and check that out. That can be your number one stop for all of your news. With that lengthy introduction here, we always want to make sure that the most important part of Ed's World is the guest. And even though he is shrouded in secrecy, I will probably have to redact the most of this, but CWal, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'll try to keep things vague so there's little editing for you to have to do. I'm CWal. I'm currently, living out. Lots of potatoes are around me. is best girl.
Well, it's unfortunate that I had to redact most of that because that was pretty juicy, and most of you are going to miss most of that. But on a serious note, and on something that I don't have to redact so much, CWal, you are involved with a show that a lot of people haven't heard, but you'd be surprised at some of the people that have heard, called the Deplorable Batcave, and I've been on that before. So why don't you tell us a bit about that, how you got involved in that, and what people should know about that before they go and view it?
Well, how I got involved with that is back in the 2016 election. We're currently 2016 plus 3 right now, so it's been 3 years. Around that time, I think it was in the summer, I was just hanging out around the Matt Christensen's channel. I said, you know what, I'm going to check out his Discord. Popped my head in, and I met there, I believe it was Blip. Our good friend Blip from the Deplorable Batcave, and he invited me to the Batcave. I think it was a couple months later, we kind of picked up a podcast they originally tried to start. I kind of went and was the guy that was doing all the recording, though we didn't live stream. We do live tape, similar to what you're doing now. Because we were also worried about secrecy back then because, the doxing got worse. Doxing has gotten a hell of a lot worse in recent days.
Right.
And that's just kind of how it is. And we've since then, Blip was leader of the Batcave for a while due to various things. He put me as kind of the head admin, and then somewhat recently, I'm now the owner of the server due to Blip having to do real life things,
right,
and no longer be a neat.
And
love you, Blip.
Go ahead.
Love you, Blip.
Yeah. Well, the Deplorable Batcave is an interesting show, too, and I always recommend people go and watch it. I mean, it's a little bit edgy, and it's completely unscripted. We have no idea what's going to go on when we go in there, but there's a lot of really good points of view that go along there. We've got people from all over the world that go into that show and talk about things. Germany, England. Isn't there someone from Japan in there, too?
Not from Japan, but we have had a guy out of Venezuela tell us about what's going on the ground. So, Caleb, if you remember him.
Yep. And I've been on the show a couple
I hope and pray that he's gotten out of that country by now.
And I've been on the show a couple times too, so it's definitely worth the watch. There have been some videos linked in my channel down below when you go down there, and the link for CWal's channel, the Deplorable Batcave, will be linked in the description. So
technically it's a group channel, and I don't manage it, but it's the channel I've most been on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that link will be in the description below. Well, if you're satisfied with what you saw there, what do you say we get into the topics here?
Oh, sure. Let's get into totally uncontroversial topics.
Well, we'll start with the most uncontroversial one here. In the past week, we saw what started out as a chance for us to laugh at a mostly failed Hollywood celebrity over going on a sex strike to being one of the most polarizing issues in the country. After Georgia's heartbeat bill, Ohio very soon had one as well, and Alabama passed a complete abortion ban all across the board, and this has caused major controversy across the country. And there have been some conspiracy theories as to what this is supposed to lead to, but most people are trying to make a national issue out of states' issues. What did you see over the last week, going from Alyssa Milano's tweets onto today?
I mean, I've kind of poked my head here and there, listened to a couple of different commentators. Amazingly, Styx hasn't talked about it too much. Styx Hammer, recommended channel for the one person there who's not heard of him who watches this channel. He does. I think he's completely wrong on abortion, and he's talked a bit about it. But the main person I've been listening to regarding this is probably Ben Shapiro.
Right.
And basically, I kind of stand with him. I am very, very pro-life. There are a few exemptions I do write into it, just because there are certain extremely morally gray situations that there is no right answer, unfortunately. And I have to be a little bit pragmatic. But I mean, a couple of stats that a lot of people aren't fully aware of. And people say, oh, well, these children will go into the system. That's actually not true. For every one baby put up for adoption, there are 36 couples waiting.
Right.
So there is even if we did a blanket ban right now, we would still not have a large enough supply if we want to use economic terms for the demand.
Well, and that's one thing, too, is you're right. I know a lot of people talk about the children that come out of the foster system and the fact that none of them are getting adopted. It is hard to adopt a grown child, or at least
Oh yeah,
7, 8, 9 years old,
yeah.
because you've got the
It's a
development there.
tragedy. It's nothing short of a tragedy.
Well,
What's happening in that system?
you've got the development there already. You've got the child already has expectations.
Mhm.
They've been hurt in the past by the foster system. So I mean, there are so many difficulties to getting.
And often they're in the foster system because their parents hurt them
Mhm.
in one way or another.
But yeah, like you said, it's a breeze to have a baby adopt. Well, it's not a breeze to adopt a baby, but to find a
It's
parent for.
not cheap, but there are a lot of infertile couples out there. There are a lot of couples that are going like there are babies out there that need to be adopted. There are many reasons for why people want to adopt a newborn baby. Hell, though it's a bit of a sad family story. I'll keep it vague, but my father's family adopted a newborn baby from basically a teenage mom,
Mhm.
a newborn, and unfortunately, kind of the story ends pretty sadly. He, sins of the father, sins of the mother, had a lot of problems himself. But I mean, there are, and the thing is, I don't. This was many years ago, in like the '60s or '70s. But I'm thinking the '60s because it was before my father was born,
Mhm.
and basically there was a newborn baby that was up for adoption, and my family, I think that my grandparents were looking to adopt, even though they had, I think, 3 kids at the time themselves,
Mhm.
3 or 4 kids at the time themselves, and they adopted them. You know, so even though we have changed the laws and it's become more complex, there are many adoption agencies out there, and it's not that we need adoption agencies to get homes for the babies. It's we need adoption agencies to try to get the best parents, and it's just they're fighting for that, and that's why there's so many foreign babies that are also brought into the U.S.
Well, in the adoption thing, that's an important thing as well.
Yeah,
The guy that sits next to me at my desk at my regular 40-hour-a-week job has 2 adopted children because he and his wife couldn't have any children at all. And it's a.
yeah,
I've had my
yeah,
differences with the guy, but he's a nice enough guy. He is a good father for those children, and
yeah.
I don't think he got them as infants. I think he did bite the bullet and take on some children who were a bit older. But I mean, there are people out there that need
Oh
that
yeah,
kind of a service, so we do need to supply some of that.
yeah. So there are ways that we can deal with unwanted pregnancies without having to do something that, I'm sorry, is very gruesome.
Hmm.
You are ending a life. I've had people claim, oh, well, technically pregnancy falls under parasite, so removing it. No, you are dehumanizing an independent being. If you want to get purely technical, the mom's a life support system.
Hmm.
Do we give hospitals the right to unplug patients without talking to their families when someone's on life support? It's a similar thing.
Right.
If somebody's in a coma and they're not 100% sure if they're going to make it or not, does the hospital, or even if the hospital says, okay, they're just going to be in a coma for 9 months and they'll be fine, do we let the hospital unplug it when they said, nah, it's not financially viable anymore, I don't want to do this?
No, that would
And
be after the socialized healthcare goes in.
yeah,
Now, unfortunately, you and I do stand a little bit differently on this issue, and I do understand the fact that it is a human life, but I'm still uncomfortable with the idea of having the big government come in and try and take some of this over. So I still land on the pro choice side on a technicality. I would rather the states come down and figure out what works best for the states than actually having any of this come out of DC. But what we saw out of a lot of these protests is a lot of people that are trying to federalize this issue, which Roe versus Wade did, and I do disagree with Roe versus Wade. Where do you
oh
stand
yeah,
on that?
horribly decided case. We both fully agree, and even Ben Shapiro agrees. And he's not very hopeful that it'll get overturned, just because the current makeup of the court is more right leaning. But
Hmm.
we got a lot of guys. But it's a very hot button topic. There's only maybe 1 or 2 guys on the court that really are okay with overturning precedent. And there is precedent for overturning precedent, because there was another case that you may have heard of. I can't remember. It was like basically suing one state using another state's court system.
Hmm.
That recently was overturned by the court. It's a very obscure case. And it does show that the court is willing to do it, but this was an obscure niche case. This isn't Roe versus Wade,
Was that
which
Collins versus Planned Parenthood?
No. This was involving like a tax company or something. It was really weird.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a really obscure, odd case. I just know that there is precedent for overturning something that is technically been a cornerstone of precedent. But the thing is, with the right argument, I could see it be overturned with the current makeup of the court. But it's got to be one really good argument to be done. And as I said, I'm in the camp of I think we need to have a heartbeat amendment. We need to do what the founder said. We need to do this we need to do this with an amendment level and only with the will of the people behind it, not force it down their throat. And the thing is, you've seen what's happened. Pro-life has become a more and more popular position over time.
Right.
It eventually, I think we will be a pro-life nation. And yes, yeah,
that's definitely a possibility. I could see that coming through. It's once again, it's the matter of things coming out of DC that's always made me uncomfortable.
It's one of those things that it's one of those situations that there are a few things, even though I try to be more libertarian, at the end of the day, I'm more of a paleoconservative.
Mm-hmm.
The federal government has certain jobs that it needs to do. And I think protecting the life of the unborn, the truly innocent in society, the ones that cannot fight back, they cannot defend themselves. Whether you are a Christian or an agnostic or an atheist, it is a potential human life. People say, oh, well, if I don't want to go into, but if you do certain things in your bed on your own using a certain hand, they say, oh, you should be taxed for that. That's only half of what is needed.
It's this hand, by the way.
Hey, you went there, not me.
It's my show. Yeah. I can go there if I want.
Yeah. But as I said, basically they're trying to say, oh, well, we need to do that because the thing is, the problem is, if you know the mechanics behind it, it takes a lot of little swimmers. Mm-hmm. Only one little swimmer gets to win. Unless, rare cases of 2 eggs. But that's basically, assuming average scenario, the male body produces a lot of those guys for reasons, because a lot of them are not going to get to the end of the day, not going to cross the finish line. And so that's a ridiculous argument. It's one of those things that when you talk to pro-choice people, their arguments are not that good and they're easy to knock down. Mm-hmm. They say, well, what if the mom doesn't want the baby? Adoption. Well, it's her choice. It's her body. No, it's not her body. It's another life form that is growing inside of her. Yes, she does have, influence on it in a sense, but the fact that we can do surrogating and, the artificial wombs are coming out there. It's one of those things. And also, if you've looked at the stats when it comes to abortion, what 99% are elective abortions or something like that.
Yeah.
The vast majority are elective. And I'm sorry, but are we not a nation that believes in freedom? And does not freedom come at the cost of being responsible? Mm-hmm. We need to hold people responsible again. It's just one of those things that we need to hold people responsible. Abortion is basically saying no consequences. And look at what's happened to society. The family unit's disintegrated. Mm-hmm. Everything, morality is all over the place. Everything is subjective. I mean, look at our pop culture. Would our parents be proud of what we've created?
Well, probably not.
Will our grandkids look back and be proud of what we created? Or will they see this as a very dark time in human history?
Only time will tell on that. I want to take a second and step away, though, from the morality of the issue onto this, because, that's been talked to death everywhere. And I want to go and look onto the policy side of this, especially given, I put it in the show notes here, so many people are out there right now talking about the fact that Alabama's abortion bill is kind of like the ACA in a sense, in the fact that it was designed to fail and meet a bigger a bigger end to a smaller means. What I mean when I say that is the fact that I looked at the law myself, and I thought this right away, but I've also heard other commenters talk about the fact that this was meant to get challenged, and this is going to get challenged as soon as it goes into effect, if not before.
Yeah.
Look,
it is a political tactic, and it's a fault of our system.
Okay.
Each branch is overstepping each other. That's why we have this big mess. It's not that one branch has gotten too powerful. It's that all branches have gotten too powerful and are stepping on each other. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, we got to pull the brakes. And in the meantime, you got to live with the system you got. You can't unless we're talking about the more extreme options of a Civil War II, electric boogaloo, or straight up revolution. Our only options on the table right now are work within the system we've got and try to reform it. And I think that is the better option. And I think that there are some people that are fighting for that. And for the moment, Alabama is just using a trick it knows in the books. And is it a bit scummy? Sure. But what other options do they have?
Do you think it would get heard? Because I know that we've already had an abortion case make it up to the Supreme Court, and Kavanaugh was on the list of people that voted not to hear it, because you have to have at least 4 justices sign on to even hear the case.
I think they're going to hear the case just because of, even though they say, the courts are not political, have you ever seen the Ninth Circus?
Yes.
With how big this is, I think the Supreme Court, because if they don't hear it, it's going to be a nightmare politically. We'll be talking that it's going to be a nightmare because there's going to be so many challenges to it. Every state will challenge it again until they listen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, as I said, one of those things that it's one of those things that I want the court to hear it so that it can get kicked back to the states, and then we can have the proper legislative argument. If more states start going more pro-life, eventually we can then go down the path that the founders wanted us to go down, which would be we write an amendment that says we are a pro-life nation. And the problem is with the Roe versus Wade, it's one of those things that if it keeps going this way, the way to resolve the issue is going to get more extreme. The longer you wait to resolve a problem, the bigger, the more that festers, the more extreme procedure needs to be to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would hope is and I kind of agree with Ben Shapiro. He's saying, look, the court makeup, I don't know if he said they'd hear it or not, but he said the court makeup, it's very hard to say whether Roe versus Wade will be upheld or overturned. I think there is a chance of it. I think Kavanaugh might have not signed on to it because it just wasn't a strong case. Because the thing is, the justices, they got to look over the previous case, and if they saw, look, these guys argued it to death, there's nothing I can do here. Did Kavanaugh say he did this because he's a pro-precedent, or did he not say why he didn't listen to it?
He didn't say, as far as I know.
So, look, everything is up in the air. There are too many variables, and we got no idea what's going on. So, right now, based on the current current makeup of the court, there's a chance I'd say there's a good chance, based on the political hotbed that it is, that the court will hear it, and it's hard to say how the justices will break. The problem is we've got who's the current swing vote on Roberts, I think his name is?
Yes, Justice Roberts.
Justice Roberts is the swing vote. And I don't know if he's going to want to upset the apple cart. If theoretically it could take months before this gets to the Supreme Court, for all we know, one of the justices could retire or, God forbid, croak.
Or be already dead.
Has anyone seen Ginsburg recently, by the way?
We have not, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
There's one little last topic I want to touch on before we move out of this here, and this falls more to the responsibility of a representative to represent his people. This whole thing, a lot of this whole thing started, I'm not going to say this whole thing started because of him, but a lot of this came to the forefront because Brian Sims decided that he was going to stand outside of a Planned Parenthood that is the most protested in the country and try and dox some teenagers, which he got some major backlash to this. There was actually a counter-protest that came up out of it, and Matt Walsh organized the whole thing. It popped up in 4 days, which is amazing in itself.
Thank you, Internet.
Yes, absolutely. But now I was reading some news articles, and I found that Mr. Sims now has police stationed outside of his office preventing anybody from coming in to talk to him. Where do you see that going?
I see it going as what position is he in? Is he a congressman, a state senator?
He is a state representative, I believe.
I think that he's going to be able to ride out the storm, but he's probably not going to get reelected unless he's in a very blue district. This guy he crossed a line.
Yeah.
He crossed a line. He's screwing with teenagers. Yeah. Look. I'm not saying that kids are above reproach. If he walked up to them and said and debated with them, that's one thing. but he is trying to ruin their lives. Doxing is well known as a way to ruin someone's life.
Yes.
And these people have not had a chance to have a life yet. You're basically trying to take their potential away from them. By doing this, he's probably only guaranteed that they're going to get into a probably Christian school, a full-ride scholarship to a Christian school or a private school of some sort, and that they're probably going to find a job at a conservative think tank.
Well, and a lot of this does echo a little bit towards the Covington thing again, too, because there are people out there that are blaming the teenagers for the fact that they were protesting, and Sims went up to them, whereas, in fact, they were there doing a peaceful protest, and somebody from the other side came up and started making an issue out of it. So,
well, it's the whole projection thing that you see a lot on the left these days. They claim the other side does what they do.
And one of the things, and it's not so much the argument that that Sims did what he did at this point. It's already done. We can't do anything more about it. But now the fact that he's not even going to listen to his constituency, he's not going to welcome anybody to come in and talk to him. He's not a representative anymore. He's a king at that point. Well, he's not a king, but he's got that same better than thou mentality, which
he's an elite. He wants to rule as if he was an elite, a part of an aristocracy of some sort. Whether it is hereditary or chosen, doesn't matter. It's an aristocracy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm somebody that believes in, you know, what's it? What is it? A king or a dictator is the tyranny of the strong. Democracy is tyranny of the mob. Republic is tyranny of the lazy. Which one do you want?
Exactly.
You know, I'm a fan of the republic, the representative republic we've developed for the United States with elements of democracy mixed in. I just think that we've, unfortunately strayed from the path, but that always happens. Systems always get corrupted. Machines break down unless they're properly maintained.
Governments are designed to grow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of governments growing and the agenda of many of the people that are running over onto the other side, let's go in and look at what's happening over on the 2020 stage. And I do have a series of 3 questions that I'm going to ask you at the end of this. I'm not going to answer on my own because my opinions, just like last week, have not changed from the week before. And we've got a very, very packed schedule going on here. But to start with on 2020, let's talk about Warren and the fact that she has refused to go on Fox. Now, far-left activist Bernie Sanders welcomed the idea of having a Fox News town hall, much to the anger of many of his constituents and much to the surprise of many people like you and I. So, strategically, where do you think Warren stands on the fact that she won't go on Fox at all?
You're talking about Pocahontas, right?
That is correct.
Look, I just think she's basically trying to steal some of Bernie's thunder. I think this is purely political. She's trying to steal some of his base because she's kind of floundering. She's at what? High single digits, maybe?
Well, everybody except for Bernie and Biden are at single digits. And she's actually been going up a little bit over the last week, I noticed, while I was doing my video on this.
Yeah.
She went from like 5 to 8 in the span of a week.
Yeah, she's getting a bit of a bump probably from this. And at the end of the day, look, the only person I like on Fox News is Tucker because I find him funny. Mm-hmm. And I think he actually legitimately tries to drill down into what people believe.
Right.
Does he use a couple of tricks and a couple of gotchas? Yeah, but is he the worst in the media? No. I think he legitimately tries to drill down into what people believe. And the rest of Fox News, a couple of them I'm okay with listening to, but I don't trust them. I don't trust them because they're much like CNN, and they've made some pretty stupid decisions in my eyes, especially regarding the rest of the media. They're a big multinational company. They are in a similar bed. It's just they're slightly conservative.
I wouldn't even call them conservative at this point. And back to Tucker.
Slightly conservative.
I mean, Tucker went on the Sunday special and said that he is willing to have large government intervention to prevent self-driving trucks. And those words, large government, just scare the hell out of me.
I wouldn't do it through large trucks. Through large government. I would just go with, look, guys, this has the potential of, instead of one guy driving a truck full of explosives, now 30 trucks in your city that are now driving into everything. Mm-hmm. That's my problem with it, of like, no. because you can get one guy to do this repeatedly, theoretically.
And I do think that there's going to be some push on that side too. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been around the trucking industry for almost my entire life.
I'm a technology guy. I see problems. If it's networked and got a computer, it can be hacked and made to do things it's not meant to do. I'm just waiting for the day when, on the Golden Gate Bridge, all the cars are sitting right on the edge, and there's a hacker group saying $1 billion or we take them over the edge. And the next day, self-driving cars will be banned. Every single one will be banned instantly.
Yeah.
They will bring this country to a halt because of how dangerous that is. Because once one person finds out how to do it, everyone and their mom will do it.
So what do you think about the idea, going back over to Warren and the Fox News side of this? What do you think of the idea of some of these Democrat contenders that are going on to Fox News and having town halls? Because it's not just Bernie. I mean, Klobuchar has gone on already. Booker is talking about it. Mayor Pete is already... actually, he was just on yesterday, now that I remember this. He was just on yesterday. Gillibrand is planning on doing this. CWal is begging for his chance to do that, but they won't let him on because he's a jackass. So what do you think about the fact that they're doing this and the fact that some of them are refusing?
I'm thinking some of them are trying to get back that working class kind of Pittsburgh vote, the Philadelphia vote that they lost to Trump. Mm-hmm. And the problem is they're doing it at the expense of the far left vote. It's political strategy. I think it's simply cold hard political strategy. There's no real thing behind this. I have no problem with them. If they get invited by Fox News, they've got the right to say yes or no.
Right.
They're technically a private publishing house. So under the law, they have a right to say yes or no, and they're sending out invites. And if they have an open door to these guys and say, hey, if you want to come on, we can come up with something. More power to them. I'm not going to stop them. I got no problem with this.
Well, and Tom Perez has made it no secret the fact that he is refusing to allow Fox News to have any of the primary debates. But he's even encouraging everyone else to go on and do the town halls.
I think it's just, as I said, it's political strategy. The thing is, the town halls, mm-hmm. those are going to be forgotten about. The debates will not be forgotten about. The town halls, you'll get a couple of sound bites maybe pop up later in the election, but that's about it. The debates, those are memorable, and they're wanting to keep those controlled because they're trying to kingmake someone. So basically, they're trying to play both sides. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're trying to get back that blue dog, 1980s Reagan Democrat vote to come back to the Democrats, because that's kind of jumped to Trump. Mm-hmm. And they're big on economics, and Trump has got a 56% approval for his economic job. And when push comes to shove, a lot of people go, "Hey, I've got more money in my pocket." When they pull that ticker, especially if you get someone that's kind of crazy on the ballot.
Well,
go ahead.
Because I'm going to move topics here. So if you've got a final thought on that, go ahead.
Yeah, and as I said, it likely we might see Biden. Biden's got is on a pretty shaky foundation. All it's going to take is one serious Me Too accusation, and there goes Biden. He's going to go on his apology tour, and that's not going to be good, and he's not going to survive that. Because the thing, he's already. I think it's like level 1, creepy guy. If you get to level 2, which is the actual assault territory, that's when you're politically done. The first level, you can generally survive it if you are well known. Level 2, only the best can really survive it. Level 3, which is, straight up, forcible rape, that's it. You're done. There's no saving you.
Well, in the interest of moving on here, let's have a look, since you brought up Trump here, on the newest member of the clown car that is going into being the Democrat nomination field. I am actually okay with the fact that there are so many people out there that want to run for the Democrat side, because I want to see all the ideas out there and see what floats to the top and what sinks to the bottom. I know a lot of people are trying to criticize the Democrats for having so many nominees, but let them fight it. Let them fight each other. Let's hear all the ideas. But Mayor Bill de Blasio now, from New York City, has joined the race, and nobody wants to vote for him.
Well, I think Trump put it best. I'm paraphrasing. Bill de Blasio is getting in to try to get out of New York because it's gone to hell because of the mayor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
And a
de
lot of
Blasio hates the mayor of New York, so he's leaving New York. But yeah, look, he's not. He's a very unpopular mayor in New York, from what I understand.
mhm.
He's not going to go anywhere. Mayors don't go very far. You normally see senators, former members of cabinet, governors. Back in the day, you'd see a couple of generals, basically guys that commanded serious amounts of power go into the presidency. You don't see Joe Blow, Bill de Blasio from New York get in there.
Well, I mean, Mayor Pete's not doing too bad right now, but
Well, he's kind of the Kasich of the election. You know
that's
how
true.
Kasich had a strong starting and then just disappeared? He's the generic Democrat right now.
I am actually really interested to see how all of this shakes out, even with some of the people that are in there that I can't stand. Just seeing the accusations come out, seeing what dirt they've got on each
Oh,
other, and
I'm hoping you've got your popcorn bucket and your marshmallows because this dumpster fire is getting lit quick.
And you brought up Biden here, and he also has made the 2020 news recently because of the infighting in the Democrat Party. And Alexandria Ocasio Cortez is now going out publicly slapping Biden for the fact that he is way too moderate to represent the Democrat Party.
Actually, he's probably if you were to grab random Democrats, he might be the closest to the average, but we're talking about a pretty wide field. I mean, if you keep up with Tim Pool's, you know that little graph he shows. You got the Republicans, a nice steep graph, fairly centered on one ideology that just kind of slightly shifted right over time, but all together.
Yeah.
Whereas the Democrats have just been kind of going further left and spreading out.
hmm
So it's one of those things that the left in America is becoming schismatic.
Yes.
And this is a problem for them. Because they're going schismatic, it means it's going to be harder and harder for them to get elected. And because the biggest peak is further left, the more moderates who are closer to the Republicans might start jumping ship to the conservatives or just staying home.
Right. Well, the thing with Cortez is interesting to me because she's already made a threat like this or in this direction once before. We'll remember back in February when a bunch of Democrats didn't want to jump on board. I believe the issue at the time was jumping on board for the impeachment hearings in the House. Ocasio-Cortez came out and said that if they don't do this, she has got a series of progressive candidates out there ready to primary everybody who won't toe the party line of the heavy progressive agenda. And this just seems like something that's in the same vein, especially coming from her in both instances.
Look, she's got an ego on her. A lot of people say she's the left wing Trump, but the problem is she's got an ego like Trump, but she doesn't have the brains to back it up.
Right.
Because the thing is, whatever someone says, Trump got his name out there, and he's a billionaire. He may not be as successful as he claims he is, but getting into that club is not easy. He's a guy that's survived the New York real estate market. He's got interests all over the world. You don't do that overnight. That Trump, people say, "Oh, Trump's an oaf." That's more of as Styx puts it, that's more of a mask he puts on. He's a long-term strategic thinker. Is he the best ever? No, but he does surround himself with strategic thinkers as well. So you kind of get my point that ACO is basically Trump's ego without the intelligence. Otherwise, would she have been a bartender in her late 20s?
Well, I mean, around here there are people that I know of that are being bartenders in their late 20s, but this is a more rural area as well. Once you're in the inner city of New York, where there are big tech firms, big financial firms,
you're going to get picked up by one of those companies pretty quick.
Yeah.
And she's got an economics degree, quote unquote. And have you heard her suggestions?
I have.
Yeah. Also, I'm getting a message from our good friend Honkler. Honk honk. He's saying that what's his name? Vermin Supreme is going to jump into the race too. And you know what? He's got my vote.
Well, speaking of your votes here, now let's Let's have a little fun. Let's talk about what I always talk about when we talk about 2020. I've got a series of 3 questions that I want to ask you for the audience based on the Democrat field that is coming in currently, which currently now has 24 people in it. First thing, look at the statistics. I assume you've looked at the statistics before.
In passing, yeah.
From a purely statistical standpoint, who do you think is going to make it to the end right now, as we said?
My number one choice would be Biden because he's got kind of the centrist leftist vote locked down. The center left vote is in him. He's also got the Obama nostalgia guys. So he's got a good solid 30% of the vote right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's enough to carry him because eventually what will happen is people start dropping out. Super Tuesday happens, so probably pick up some support. And he might not get endorsements from all the leftists leaving, but he might get some of the support from the weaker, more centrist guys.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of them, and the thing is, I think he is punching left, so he's the most likely. But if you see enough of the leftists drop out and back someone like Sanders,
mm-hmm.
you could see Sanders get up there.
Right.
But it's very hard to say.
Okay, now on your personal opinion, and you can base this on whatever you want, but keep in mind that the next question after this is going to be purely on entertainment. On your personal opinion, for whatever reason you want, who do you want to see out of the Democrat field currently of 25 people make it to the end and get the nomination to run against Trump?
Oh, there are so many. There are so many I want to see.
And like I say, keep in mind the next question is going to be pure entertainment.
Oh, okay. You want the entertainment? The entertainment. Okay. Well,
the entertainment is the next question. This is the serious one.
Okay, the serious one.
Yep.
I would like to see probably Bernie Sanders or one of the other far left, the ones that are pushing other far left socialist positions.
Okay.
Because I want to see the referendum. I want to see America's referendum on socialism. I want to see them go down in flames because I just think socialism is not palatable in the U.S. I don't think it'll survive. Yeah, it's popular with millennials, but millennials are very, very bad at voting. They don't vote as much as people want them to. And they are, post World War I, you had the lost generation.
Mm-hmm.
I think the millennials are going to be the second lost generation, not due to a war, but because they were screwed up from day one. I'm a millennial. I'm more in line with Gen Z, which is looking to be probably similar to the greatest generation and do a lot of good stuff.
And I'm more in line with Gen X because I'm like right on the line. I'm technically a millennial too, but the line is like somewhere between 79 and 86, and I was born in 84, so.
Yeah.
So, Same question now, but this time from a purely entertainment standpoint. Who is going to go down and face Trump that is going to entertain you the most by the end?
Oh, God, because I've thought of so many different scenarios that could be used because all of them are hilarious. Biden is just going to be probably boring on stage unless Trump digs up, someone who says that Biden sexually assaulted them. And I want Trump to have them basically stand up in the debate and say, Biden, you did this to me. Why did you do this? You say basically berate him in the middle of a debate and just get him to crack. I want to see that. I would love to see Kamala Harris just lose it on stage. Same thing with Elizabeth Warren. Because I think they're both like Hillary Clinton, but they don't have the control on stage that Clinton does. So I want to see them cuss out Trump and Trump just to laugh his ass off.
Well, and Kamala's never run against a Republican either anywer in her rise to political prominence.
For Bernie, I just want to see him stroke out on stage. He just say, free pudding, collapse. I just want to see that.
Well, my entertainment question has always been, it's either been Kamala because she's never run against a Republican. I think she's going to get slapped around over that. Or Bernie because, I've got a nice, deep East Coast background to me. So I would love to see two angry, old, ancient New Yorkers yell back at each other in their New York accents.
Yeah. Just because that image is hilarious, I want to see crazy Uncle Bernie versus Chad Don Trump, because you basically have two New Yorkers. One has been basically a burnout his entire life and done nothing, and then you've got the guy who's built an empire, for lack of a better term, an international real estate empire. So you have two people. One has done nothing, and the other has done quite a bit. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
All right. Well, it's time to move along out of this here for a second. It's a good thing we talked about Cortez because this next
Yeah.
story goes along with the fresh faces of the House of Representatives.
So fresh, so fresh. Trademark Ben Shapiro.
Um, Rashida Tlaib got herself into some really hot water with a lot of people on the right this past week, saying that she got a calming feeling from thinking about the Holocaust. Now, she defended this by saying that her Palestinian ancestors gave up land for the Israelis and the Jews to come back and form a new country that has now taken advantage of Palestine, which I don't really know so much of the history behind that.
Fun fact:
5,000 years.
The leader of the Palestinians basically lived in Hitler's guest room and was the one who pushed Hitler just to exterminate the Jews. So that's the short version of it. The long version of it is there were a series of things the British actually had to keep Jews out because they had trouble keeping the riots of Palestinians in check. And it's just one of those things that, yeah, there were some tolerance of them, but if I remember some of the history, the Palestinians, what they did is they would give crappy land to the Jews. The Jews would actually make it useful, and the Palestinians say, oh, yeah, we want that back now, after the Jews built it into something worthwhile. So it's, look, I'm in the camp of, I want to get out of that quagmire and just basically say, Israel, do what you're going to do, we out. And just let the pieces fall because it's such a mess.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that have so many varying degrees of opinion on what we should be doing about Israel, including people like you that say just let them alone and do their own thing, and people like Mr. Shapiro who think that 97% of our defense budget should be spent on Israel.
No. Look, I'm fine with being friends with them. I'm fine with selling them guns, but I don't want any of our guys going over there to die for them unless it is a legitimate, call for help. And they are, if all of a sudden all the caliphates formed and all of a sudden all of them are attacking from all sides, then I could say, okay, yes, for moral reasons we have to step in because this is ridiculous. They're literally calling for genocide. The moral thing to do would be to get involved.
Yeah, you have to get that?
No, just my phone booping at me. I'll quickly check it, make sure it's not, serious. It's just my inbox basically booping from you earlier.
Nice.
My phone is very slow.
So, now as far as the thing with Rashida Tlaib go, because this goes back onto the idea of massive anti-Semitism with these new freshman congresswomen who have made such a name for themselves. First off, do you think this falls under the ideology of anti-Semitism, yes or no?
Look, I don't want to borrow terms, but this is a dog whistle. This is a dog whistle to a lot of people that are. Look, I know how the left says, "Oh, there are secret racists out there." I think they legitimately are secret racists. They have a legitimate hatred for the Jewish people because they tend to be very successful,
right?
Especially in the West. And the problem is, if you look at a lot of the history, yeah, they were kicked around pretty hard for a long time. But I'll say this about the Jewish people. There have been plenty of individuals that have been unscrupulous within their communities.
Right.
They exist.
Right, because we're individualists. We're not group thinkers.
Yeah. And there is, a lot of the worry about them being fairly nepotistic and keeping things in the family. So there is plenty of room for suspicion to be bred. Do I think we need to blanket paint them? No. I think that there are individuals that we should be careful around. That these people, as long as they are willing to contribute to society and that they stand with the nation they live in, because I'm a nationalist, I believe the nation you live in, you should stand with it.
Right. Well, there's a soundbite for my show.
What was that?
So there's a soundbite for my show.
Yeah. Yep. Stand with the nation you live in.
No, I'm a nationalist.
Yeah, I'm a nationalist. But I'm not a socialist.
Right.
So can't get me on that one, leftists.
Well, and the thing, and I've always, for Cortez, there's nothing there because she is a Catholic Puerto Rican growing up.
Yeah.
But as far as Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, I do give them an extent of a pass. Not a complete pass, but an extent of a pass. Because, you look back at the history of not the Arabs, but the Islamic people and the Jewish people, and that goes back to Abraham, and the fact that
We're not entirely sure, actually.
well,
What we can say for certain is Muhammad genocided the Jewish tribes.
mm-hmm.
So, in my eyes, he cast the first stone. Does that justify, the Israelis killing everyone if they so chose? No, it doesn't. But it does make me more sympathetic to the Israeli cause than the Islamic one. And also, I don't trust the Islamic one because taqiyya is a thing. And I look at a lot of what these people are saying, and I think they legitimately are anti-Semites, but their general criticisms of Israel, not unwarranted. But it's the whole broken clock thing.
Right.
The criticisms aren't some of the criticisms aren't anti-Semitic, but they're coming from someone who is anti-Semitic in my eyes, because they have made statements that are beyond the pale anti-Semitic.
And of course, if you ask any hardcore Islamist, they will say that this all goes back to the fact that Abraham gave his blessing to Isaac rather than Ishmael.
Yeah.
Because Muhammad was a descendant of Ishmael.
Yeah. And it's, whatever. That's my position. Whatever. Deal with it. Look, you guys have been in a crappy desert for a long time. It's done something to your head. It's time to take some Xanax and calm down, please. Do not make my worst fears come true.
Well, with that in mind here, let's have a look and talk about the never-ending story. And I'm not talking about the one with the great big white furry dragon. I'm talking about the Mueller saga. And
how dare you? I like that big white furry dragon. And that dragon would make the Mueller probe a hell of a lot more interesting.
This past week, which was almost swallowed up in the news by the fact that the abortion thing happened throughout the week, I heard Rush talk about it on Tuesday, and that's pretty much the only thing that I've heard from mainstream outlets anymore at this point. But William Barr has he's what's the word I'm looking for? He's appointed. That was it. I almost said promoted, but it's not a promotion.
He started a probe. He's not started a special investigation. He just started a probe with an investigator who has a history of rooting out government corruption, especially among the intelligence agencies. Mm-hmm. This guy's a specialist, and he's trying to get to the bottom of what the hell happened. And we've heard the rumors, and we've gotten some confirmation that there were FBI agents on the case who were handed the Steele dossier and said, "This is bullshit," and it was still used as evidence.
Right.
There's also there is exculpatory evidence that might not have been given to the various people that needed access to it. I think the FISA jet, there was apparently exculpatory evidence that would have ended this, that people have seen. For example, Trey Gowdy was talking about that, and then later was partially confirmed because Trey Gowdy's the former oversight committee chair, since he's no longer in Congress.
Right.
I think it's ranking Republican said, basically, I've seen stuff that does support what he's saying. So there are, again, this is politicians, so you got to be careful. But these are Republicans, not the Democrats, who said we have the evidence on Trump now. We just need to wait for Mueller. Good old, what's his name? Peter Schitt, is it? Shifty?
Sturzak.
Sturzak? Huh. No, the guy who's head of Intelligence Committee in
Adam Schiff.
Adam Schiff. I thought it was Shifty Adam.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said he had evidence for 2 years and nothing's come up of it. But Republicans saying, hey, we've seen some things that support this position. You notice the language they're using. Mm-hmm. The Republicans are a lot more careful, whereas the Democrats say we have the goods. And it's one of the things that I think that our good friend William Barr, or current good friend William Barr, legitimately is somebody who wants to see justice done. And I think he was disturbed by what he's seen so far. And he's working the angles. What will come of it, I can't say for certain. What I believe might come of it is some people getting in serious trouble from Obama's era. We might see some arrests, maybe, but it's hard to say. A lot of these government agencies are good at hiding their secrets. Because if the lid is lifted off of this and we get a full whiff of this, let's say the worst is possible, that Barack Obama directly ordered the FBI to look into Trump. How quickly do you think there will be a call for the federal government to be stripped of investigative powers to protect the people?
Right.
How quickly do you think policing powers will be stripped from the federal government?
And that's the thing too. And I keep hearing that there's a deflection out of all of this. I was doing a little bit of reading here before we started recording. If I remember correctly, you were finishing something up right before we started recording, and a lot of the first thing I saw was an opinion piece from NBC that said that because Barr is doing this now, he is acting like a defense attorney defending a clearly guilty client rather than the chief prosecutor of the United States. And
No. One of the prosecutor's jobs is if something smells hinky in their office, their job is to make sure their house is clean and in order. If a prosecutor has to call an outside source to look into their office, that's basically surrendering. That is them saying, I have lost control. I cannot trust my own office. He is doing effectively internal investigations, which he is tasked with doing. One of his jobs is making sure things are running properly. And if they're not, and the thing is, people forget, prosecutors are required to turn over exculpatory evidence. If they're prosecuting a case and they come across evidence that proves the defendant is not guilty, either they have to submit it themselves, which is the smarter move, saying, look, we can't, normally they'll just drop it, saying, look, we found this, we asked the judge to drop it to basically save face, or they will hand it over to the defense, who will then request for the case to be immediately thrown out. And if they held exculpatory evidence, do you remember the Duke Lacrosse case a while back?
yes, I do.
Do you know what happened to the prosecutor in that case?
I do not. I have a feeling I'm about to learn.
At the very least, he was disbarred. I think he actually might be in jail right now for prosecutorial misconduct. He withheld exculpatory evidence. He never put the DNA evidence that was taken from the woman into the record. And the DNA evidence, the entire team donated DNA. It didn't match anyone. Mm-hmm. No one on the team popped. The entire team, including those that were being accused, were donated DNA for testing. Mm-hmm. No one matched. None of them. And DNA it only has a success rate of about 85% with our current testing technology because of the method they use. I don't want to get into those details. I know a little bit about that.
Right.
But the fact that no one popped means that either she's lying or she's lying about the people or she's lying about the event. Mm-hmm. And the prosecutor withheld this to keep the case going, to try and get them to, I guess, plead out or something. And in the end, it bit him in the ass. And I'm sorry, if people withheld things, they need to go to jail for that. Because they say, Trump is the constitutional crisis for trying to seal up the Mueller report, the redacted Mueller report. No, the Mueller report itself is the constitutional crisis that this was allowed to go on.
Right.
As long as it did.
Now, one of the things I kept seeing while I was reading for this as well is the fact that so many people, especially those in the NBC opinion room, but over at the New York Times, Washington Post, and even a little bit over on Fox, believe that the fact that Mr. Dunham? Yeah, Mr. Dunham is being appointed to this is a crisis in and of itself, and it shows the fact that Barr is acting as a defense attorney because the job should have gone to the Inspector General from inside of the DOJ.
The Inspector General does not have subpoena powers. He does not have, people don't know this, the Inspector General only can access public records. He has to get special permission to access these additional records. Mm-hmm. That's why a prosecutor is being brought in. And the thing is, this is a bit of a rumor and a lot of theory mixed in, but the reason why Barr is doing this is because he might have already gotten a tip-off from the Investigator General that he found something, that he found a smoking gun. And Barr is trying to get ahead of this. Okay. He's trying to get his people on the ground so that everything is in place so that it can be handed off from the Investigator General to Barr. Because the thing is, the Investigator General is not doing an investigation. He's doing a review, basically an audit. And he only has so much access. He doesn't have subpoena power. He doesn't have the ability to put people under oath. He doesn't have that. He's very limited in his power. So it's kind of like asking. It basically, the way to put it would be simply. It's asking. What would be a good way to put this? It's asking somebody without computer privileges on a network to do a full audit of that network.
Okay.
He doesn't have full access, which Barr does. So I think Barr is covering his bases. And the thing is, they're doing a whole reversal. Oh, he's acting like a defense attorney. Well, you said that this stuff should be gotten to the bottom to.
Mm-hmm.
We got to find out what happened. Should we not? You were full gung ho for a special investigator. Why not? You said Trump should have called for a special investigator on himself. That Kavanaugh should have called for an investigation on himself. Why shouldn't you call an investigation on your investigation? It's basically you can catch him in hypocrisy trap. And the thing is, remember Sturzak and his lover? Well,
mm-hmm.
I can't remember her name.
Lisa Page.
Lisa Page. She dropped some pretty serious bombshells. That I'm sorry, those are the second those dropped, the Mueller investigation should have been immediately paused. Everyone involved should have been sworn to total silence, and an immediate investigation should have been launched into how this thing started. And then, if it is what I think it is, which was basically they lied and cheated, and stole to get the thing started, a judge should be sealing all of this as fruit of the poisonous tree and never letting it see the light of day again. Because fruit of the poisonous tree is a very specific legal parlance. Any evidence of crimes that you found under bad faith, like let's say you faked a warrant to get into someone's place and you found the evidence you needed,
mm-hmm.
that evidence is completely inadmissible, and any other evidence that you found because of that evidence is also inadmissible. Fruit of the poisonous tree.
Right.
I'm thinking we need to declare that all the evidence needs to be locked away and never spoken of again, not because there's something evil in there, but because the Fourth Amendment has been violated.
Which it absolutely has, but I look at some of this too, and I think to myself about the fact that possibly this has something to do with, the fact that it was allowed to go on.
Yeah.
We have a media here that is going to swing for the left no matter what, and this is going to change how we look at things going into the next few elections, and it's going to maybe gin up the support of the people in the country to try and push for an impeachment. I'm pretty sure that the Donald has been advised of the fact that everything that you have said is true, which legally it is all true, and we could be doing that. But what is that going to look like, especially when you've got the media being shaken against you? I think that
remember, the media is at all-time low trust.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump's approval is going up. Remember, after the Mueller report started settling, his approval started going up.
Right.
Look, it's one of those things that I think Trump is going into a later phase of the game.
Right.
We're playing a political game of chess here. The Democrats think they're playing checkers. Trump is playing chess.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with that too, because at any point, especially with the Fourth Amendment being violated, Trump could have ended the Mueller probe. But what story is going to get out to the country when he goes and does it? He's hiding something. He's trying to hide something. So he lets it go down. And now, yes, we are having an investigation of this while everything is out in the open, and he's sitting here waving his hairpiece saying, "Hey, look, I got nothing to hide here."
Yeah. And the thing is that from what I can tell, the people are more likely to believe Trump in this scenario, not the media. The media said, we have the goods. The Mueller report will show Trump is evil. Mm-hmm. The problem is, Trump, and the thing is, the media, learned helplessness. Learned helplessness combined with the crying boy, boy crying wolf.
Mm-hmm.
They cried wolf so many times. The trust of the media is at all-time lows. The people are getting really questionable of the social media companies as well, taking out what appears to be competition.
Mm-hmm.
Trump launched that whole, the White House site. Tell us your stories about being. Look, it's going to get flooded by a bunch of fake stories, but all it takes is a couple of compelling stories to be verified for Trump to then go in and say, "Hey, Google, Alphabet, Twitter, Facebook, I would like you to talk to the FTC and SEC about being in a trust with the media companies." And then suddenly, overnight, those companies' stocks drop by 25%. Mm-hmm. The entire management is replaced overnight by emergency, basically the investors stepping in saying, "You're all fired," and replacing them with people who are basically going to tell everyone, "You're going to let everything go through, and if we hear you do anything, we fire your entire department." Not just the person who did it, everyone. They're going to go into full panic mode because these are major companies. And do you know what an SEC investigation into with trust-busting implications means to these companies?
Mm-hmm.
government oversight boards, assuming they aren't forcibly broken up, which means they just lost the ability to be competitive for years. The only reason Microsoft survived having one of those boards is because Apple was a joke. That is the only reason Microsoft survived having that board. Apple was a joke for years, comparatively. So,
I want to step off of this now for a second and move off over into what'll be just a little quick hitter story, I guess. Congressional Democrats this past week, speaking of the Mueller report, have decided that they are going to get together on the House floor and read the entire Mueller report line by line, because apparently that's the only way that the American people are going to hear it.
Excuse me, it's publicly available. You can download the PDF from the Department of Justice's website. It is completely accessible. This is just they're gonna focus on certain lines that make Trump look bad. Because remember that letter Mueller sent to Barr saying, basically it was like, oh, you didn't set the right mood, that Trump did this and this and this, but your summary is completely accurate, was basically the last line.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's going to be the thing. The Democrats are basically doing Benghazi on steroids. They're looking into something, whereas Benghazi legitimately should have been investigated because there was a lot of smoke around that. And we still haven't gotten to the bottom of it. It's just the media was able to poison it so well, poison the well so much that the Republicans couldn't get to the bottom of it in the end. Same thing with Fast and Furious. Same thing with all these other things. They just said, oh, those crotchety Republicans trying to stop progress. Well, now the media is basically trying to say Trump is evil, Trump is evil, Trump is evil. And people are going, wait, you were saying stuff like this was bad 5 years ago.
Right.
What happened? They're getting caught in hypocrisy traps. If you did it 20 years ago, you could maybe get away with it. But less than 5, or about 5 years ago, and also, and it's one of the things that they're not doing well. They're falling apart at the seams. You saw what happened to CNN's ratings after the Mueller report dropped.
Yeah, I did.
Rachel Maddow, I think, is currently crying into a TV dinner while watching Oprah or something. At this point, look, as I just said, look, it's a political move. They're trying to keep the Mueller report, the Mueller investigation alive, when in actuality they're the ones on the hot seat. There was a funny meme that I've got somewhere stored, because you have to have your meme folder, because we're gonna have to airdrop. With Europe doing its stupid shit, we're gonna have to airdrop thumb drives with those things into Europe.
Hold on, Blippity Blop and Stefan, we're coming. We got memes for you.
Hey kid, you want some dank memes? But yeah. Basically, it's political gamesmanship that's not going to work. The smartest move. The thing is, they're basically playing the short game. The Democrats are playing the short game for short-term power, but they're doing it at the expense of the long game.
Well, the short-term power is, I think, what they're looking for, so they can change the laws so they can make it into long-term power.
Well, the problem is there is so much pushback at this time. Short-term gains often have long-term consequences. And these long-term consequences could be they change the rules and then suddenly they're out of power, and guess who's holding the power? That they did. This is why you need to do long-term strategy. Long-term strategy always over short-term. The Democrats could have easily kneecapped Trump by just being mildly negative about him and doing small underminings, but at the same time being conciliatory, and then proposing counter-proposals and basically you could have played Trump. Trump is easy to play. You play against his ego. And they're not. They're trying to play his game. And he's a master of it. Trump's entire strategy is publicly known, people. He wrote a book.
Oh, he ghost wrote that.
Well, he's still following the same strategy. Does it matter?
Well, in the interest of time here, we're at 69 minutes right now, so we'll probably have to jump on here and go forward with this. I've got a couple little quick hitters here now, and this is all just foreign policy, which we don't do a lot of on this show, but all three of these stories that I've found are really important to the discourse of what's going on and what's going to happen in 2020. And the first one is the thing that we've been talking about ever since the Donald was elected, and even before he was elected back in 2016, when everyone said that he was going to put us into a trade war and bankrupt our country. Now we are on a tariff war with China. And this has got some effects that are going on. I think some of the people are starting to feel some of this. And China is trying to strike back. And now the media is telling us this is an attack on the farmers. So where do you see the tariffs going, first off? Where do you stand on tariffs? Let's start there first.
China's foundation is crumbling. They're going to lose this because they're the supplier, we're the demander. And China's not our number one trade partner. They're number 3 behind Mexico. So, and also companies are starting to look towards India and East Africa for their production. China is trying to. I think China's strategy is to trick the media into tricking the people.
Elaborate.
I think basically what China's doing is they're putting up a big game. They're putting, the big old. We're putting tariffs on American farmers, and basically they're trying to make it look like they can fight. In actuality, they've already started stimulating their economy to prevent it from collapsing. China is in dire straits right now. Europe won't absorb all that trade from China. The U.S. is the only thing that can keep China afloat. So China's only choice in the end is probably going to be surrender. All Trump has to do is be able to weather the storm. And he'll win. China cannot survive the storm. And the thing is, China's got a lot of internal problems. And if China gets hit by a depression or a recession, or God forbid, a depression, there might not be a China when we're done with this. It might fracture and be multiple nations again.
Do you think there's a possibility that Mr. Un can jump over there and try and shake things back up for them, or annex the whole country?
Yeah, Kim Jong-un is currently negotiating a cushy retirement. That's what he's doing right now. He's not negotiating to keep North Korea. He's negotiating, please don't put me in front of the Hague. That's basically Kim Jong-un's long-term plan. Escape strategy. He's not going to win that either.
Well, I mean, to an extent, if China crumbles and collapses right now,
yeah,
he's got a 1.7 billion man army there at his disposal, and he is touching that country. And we all know that he's completely ruthless, and he'll do whatever it takes to win. So that
Kim Jong-un?
Yeah, that worries me just a little bit, but not completely.
You think Kim Jong-un can get part of the Chinese army to back him? No, they're going to what? Okay, 19. You know what happened in what 1920s happened to China?
Refresh my memory.
Warring states.
Oh.
There were multiple warlords. Do you think the Chinese generals are going to bow to a Korean? Or do you think they're going to take their army and go, hey, I'm going to cut out this chunk of China for myself. I am now dictator. Everyone's going to be going for power, because the only way to get to the top of this thing is, because the thing is, the Chinese army is not the army of China. It's the army of the political party. It literally is it's literally owned by the political party, not the nation of China. So the political people within that are going to gut it and grab what they can and then hold what they can. Sure, North Korea might be able to make some steps into Manchuria, but without China backing them, South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. will go, that looks easy to kick. That sandcastle looks easy to kick over. And you don't think that North Korea would immediately sue for peace the second China starts getting into serious trouble? That they wouldn't immediately say, reunification, peace treaty now, please? Yeah, the only reason North Korea even has 2 bargaining chips: nuclear weapons and other chemical and biological weapons of mass destruction, and China. China will back them if we are the aggressor. But if North Korea is the aggressor, China is going to have to drop them because they risk losing U.S. trade relations.
And yeah, like you said, nobody else will absorb that.
Yeah, and no one else is going to absorb that. Europe is not going to want to piss off the U.S. by absorbing it, because Europe are cowards. They don't have the army to protect themselves. The U.S. is protecting them right now.
Yeah.
So So if Europe spites us, we go, oh, we're going to have to transfer all of our naval assets and ground assets from Europe to the Chinese front. Sorry about that, Europe. Good luck. And then Russia suddenly becomes in their back door again. Or Poland, invades Germany. Who knows?
Or the Middle East.
The Middle East is not organized enough. They're pretty terrible when it comes to military stuff.
Yeah, they just do it underground.
No, those are the guerrilla fighters. Guerrilla fighters are a nightmare to deal with no matter who you are. I'm talking the actual militaries of the Middle East are a joke. They can't keep their stuff maintained.
Well, apparently they're not a complete joke because the other foreign policy, one of the other two foreign policy stories that I have sitting here. Oh, excuse me. It was suddenly announced to us in the news the fact that we are very suddenly pulling everybody out of Iraq except for essential emergency personnel based on threats that came from Iran. Now, there's been some backlash to Iran over this, including the president standing his ground, thankfully, onto this. But yes, we are basically, because of a shaken fist, pulling everything we can out of Iraq at this point.
I don't really know what's going on with that. I can't say.
Yeah.
Trump so far has been not a warmonger.
Right.
So I'm thinking this is a combination of saber rattling, as well as maybe a backdoor way to get our boys out of the Middle East, because Trump has wanted to bring our boys home, legitimately. So he basically, I'm thinking Trump, what he's doing, or one of his aides is doing, is basically saying, hey, let's show we're strong to Iran. At the same time, get a lot of our shit out of the Middle East because we don't need it there. That's my best guess of what's happening. I don't see any obvious signs of, the U.S. going to war with Iran. That'd be suicide. And Trump, so far, has been pretty good about not going to war. He's been good at the saber rattling. Remember, Trump is using two strategies for foreign policy: Teddy Roosevelt's strategy and Kissinger's strategy. The Roosevelt strategy is speak softly but carry a big gun. Mm-hmm. So Trump is basically flexing the American military muscle a little bit to show off. The second thing, the Kissinger strategy, is the MAD strategy. Make sure your enemy has no idea what you're doing and think you're crazy.
Right. Which he does a very good job of that.
Yeah, exactly. Why has no one picked up on this? If you talk to people who have worked with Trump in the past behind closed doors, he is a very calm and collected individual. The second he gets into a public negotiation, that's when he starts making the big demands and big asks. Again, this is just an extension of Trump's business strategy. That's all this is. In just adopting elements of foreign policy strategy where his business acumen doesn't fit. As I said, Kissinger and Roosevelt and Teddy, the good Roosevelt. Mm-hmm. It's plain as day for anyone who's seen history how to do it. And the thing is, European diplomacy is always says, oh, let's do this over tea and wine and crumpets, very friendly and puffy and conciliatory. The rest of the world, you basically walk up to them, you set the gun on the table and say, okay, what kind of deal are you going to give me? And you keep petting the gun. That's the rest of the world's diplomatic strategy. Mm-hmm. You have the threat of force always in your back pocket. The second you say you won't do something is the second they win the negotiation, because they will position themselves so that your only option to win is that one thing you won't do.
The last thing I want to touch on here before we get out into the outro here, rather, is that Trump has announced that there's going to be an immigration policy shift. And this is something, again, I've not seen a lot of in the news, just basically the announcement of it. So I'm not 100% sure what the new policy is going to be, but everyone made quite a big deal about the fact that he made a press conference and he is going to change the immigration policy. What have you seen on this so far?
Fairly limited, but from what I've been able to piece together, basically what Trump is doing is, I think he's basically using a compromised position. He's switching to but it's deceptive. The strategy he's saying is we're switching to a meritocratic system, if I remember right, what I've heard. And he said, but it will totally not affect the number of people coming in. But the problem is, I think it's like 60 to 70% of all the people coming in are not coming in on meritocratic reasons. They're coming in via chain migration.
Right.
Trump is basically backdoor shutting down chain migration. And he's just using words to disguise that. That's what I think he's doing. Same thing with what he's doing by dumping the illegals into sanctuary cities. He's trying to force a paradigm shift, because a lot of the sanctuary cities didn't have a large visible illegal immigrant populations. They were very underground in these cities. Now that Trump is making them visible, just kind of quickly go on a small tangent. I can't remember where it was, but this very liberal city, there was an experiment done. Supposedly, they were like this one district was considered one of the least racist districts in America, and all they did to make them be xenophobic and racist, quote unquote, in the left's terms, was have two guys every day speaking Spanish to each other while waiting for a train. And within weeks, people were very against people speaking Spanish in public. It's kind of they have a not in my backyard policy, these sanctuary cities. And Trump is just saying, okay, you want to be a sanctuary city? Here you go. And he's shifting the paradigm. The working class of these cities is probably going to go, everything's going to hell. I can't find work. And the reason why is because Trump is saying, hey, I can't get rid of these illegal immigrants that are taking your jobs. Vote for me or vote for Republicans. He's basically trying to break their systems, force them to either admit that they're lying and wrong, or get them to or get other people in power. It's a brilliant strategy because they can't stop him. There's no way to stop him.
Truer words have never been spoken.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the thing too, and the thing with speaking Spanish, that's an amazing thing to me. The fact that is the benchmark that they're using. Look how white I am. I speak Spanish.
Well, no, it's just this fairly white liberal district in the city. I can't remember what it was. They suddenly became very unhappy and with people speaking Spanish, because before that point, very few ever spoke it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, last time I checked, we're an English-speaking nation, so everyone should speak English. If you're going to live here, you should speak English.
Well, I mean, constitutionally, we don't have an official language out here, but that's just the language everybody's agreed on.
But all of our legal documents are in English.
Yeah.
Our founding documents are in a older dialect of English, but that can't be helped. Our roots are specifically Anglo-Saxon European. So it's one of those things that even though de jure we're not an English-speaking nation, we're de facto one. And I think we should just, rip off the Band-Aid and say, yep, we're an English-speaking nation. Get over it.
I find it curious, the fact that you decided to describe that using a French word and a Latin word.
It's the legal parlance, de facto versus de jure.
I know.
Yeah. Remember, English is the language that beats up other languages and steals stuff to make itself better. Remember, we're that bastard of a language.
Well, that's all that I have for this show here. So I think it's time that we run through the outro. The last thing that we always do on this show is we try and end things on a positive note, because there's so much negativity in politics. There's so much animosity, and just there's no consensus. So rather than talking about something political or something with work, tell me a little bit about a hobby that you have that has nothing to do with politics or religion or work or anything like that. It could be an album you've been listening to, it could be a sport that you play in, it could be a video game you've just picked up, just something positive to send us out on.
Oh yeah, if you want me to give you my quick video games things, I'm more into strategy games. I'm probably going to get back into one of Paradox's games because they just released a new DLC, Surviving Mars. So you can terraform Mars now.
Nice.
Yeah. When it comes to other hobbies, though, I haven't done a lot recently based on this gear I'm wearing. I do airsoft.
I'm not 100% sure what airsoft is, except for the gun that Michael Reeves shot himself with in his video, but give me a quick rundown on.
Airsoft, just to give you a quick definition, it's where you take these little 6mm plastic BBs and you shoot them out of one of several types of airsoft guns. They often are modeled after real guns. Like, for example, I think that you've kind of seen me fiddle with this. I'm kind of thumb twiddling bored. That is an airsoft gun. Normally, you expect the orange tip. Right. Legally speaking, It only needs to be there for the sale of the gun, not for actually holding it.
Okay.
And to anyone who wants to get an airsoft gun, especially these more realistic ones, remember the only way to tell this is an airsoft gun is looking here with the magazine. This is the PSA safety kits.
Yep.
You'll notice that this doesn't look like a normal magazine. This is just really a gas magazine because it's a gas pistol.
Mm-hmm.
These things are very realistic. This thing is similar weight. This is actually licensed from the firearm manufacturer for the logos. That's how realistic they are. And basically, as I said, just a warning to all who want to get an airsoft: be very careful with these things. Do not point them at someone because they look very real. And rule the cops: if it looks real, they've got to assume it's real.
If it looks real, you will become deceased.
Yeah. But basically what you do is you go out on the weekends. I do what's called mil-sim airsoft, where it's a bit more. It's not just run around like paintball. It's not like paintball where it's like you run around on like a field with the those air-filled things. That's speedball. Or speed soft. That's a different thing that still exists. What I do is we go out to what's called BLM, or Bureau of Land Management land, and we run around basically forests and fields and do kind of military simulation. I enjoy it on the weekend. I prefer more of the crazy fits. I mean, I carry around this thing as a sidearm, a short stock pump shotgun as a sidearm. I carry that on my leg. So I'm a little bit more on the want to have some fun side, do a ridiculous build. But it's just a thing I like to do on the weekends. It's fun. I've got a couple of buddies from it. Unfortunately, I haven't done a lot recently due to a combination of work and stress. But I'm going to try to get back into it in the near future.
Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for helping us talk about the news for an hour and a half here. That's been great. Remember, if you want to continue the conversation, you can follow me over on Twitter. That is at EdsBlog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. Follow us. Comment on what you saw on the show. We always comment back. So go ahead and do that. If you want to finish the conversation with CWal, why don't you tell us where we can find you?
You can find me on Discord. That is it. So pop into the Deplorable Batcave. I haven't been doing a lot recently with it, but if you want to pop into the Deplorable Batcave and at me, at Jagger, if you'd be more than happy, would you mind throwing a link, an invite link to the Discord?
I don't know how to get invite links, so I'm going to have you send me one. But
I'll get you a 20. I'll get you a permanent one.
Okay.
And I'll send it to you after this. But yeah, come in if you want to at me or private message me. I'm fine with that. It's just the best way to contact me is Discord. I'll try to respond to you, but all I ask is try to be respectful, or send me some dank memes. I accept both.
As we went over in the beginning of the show, thanks again for watching this. If you like what you saw, reach down and hit that thumbs up button that's below you. That's going to be on YouTube and BitChute. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button while you're sitting over there. That helps us move up the algorithms, helps this channel get searched, and that is the same on YouTube and BitChute. Once again, if you are listening back to this on an audio platform, or if you haven't listened to this on an audio platform yet, Ed's World is available for download on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And we would be happy to add another one to the roster. All you have to do is request it. And if you are on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and a good review. That helps makes us more searchable, and that helps move us up the algorithms. Ed's World is partnered with the Freedom Scoop Media Group. That background that you're seeing over there, that was made by the head of the Freedom Scoop Media Group, and they've got all kinds of great creators. Make sure you go over there and check out what they do over there. And again, message me, email me, that is edsblogtwitter@gmail.com, if you have an interest in writing for the site or if you have an interest in content creation. As we always say on Ed's World, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. CWal, you have last word.
Let's see. What should be good last words? Good night, good luck. No, that from someone else. How about this? Society is not to be operated by fuckwits. Let's get the fuckwits out of society, please. Have a great night, folks.
No one can argue with that. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
All right.